Was he aware of all of these rules and all of these regulations about how his money was going to be spent? Or were you in a position to say, Gary, you know what, we can't go to San Francisco this week because your allowance is spent?
See, this is what people don't understand, the public don't understand. With that in mind, I mentioned to you earlier that we settled for a total of 20%. Out of that 20%, all the provision that Gary wanted to do, you know, like for instance, if he wanted to take a trip, he wanted to go on vacation, he wanted to buy more train, you know, okay, a more train pod. We did not prevent Gary from having anything that he wanted. You know, I would have liked to have prevented him from doing it. Maybe, you know, maybe that, you know, like when he got grown and everything, he wouldn't have been so anxious to say, well, okay, I want to draw out everything out of my, you know, my block account and everything. You know, I got millions and everything. I didn't want to, you know, blow it. It was his money. He could do whatever he wanted to do with it. But when it come down to us spending his money, that never occurred.
Now, in the published reports, there are estimates that Gary made in excess of $18 million during his career. And in 1989, Gary filed suit against you, the parents, and a judge ruled against you, and that Gary won a $1.2 million judgment against you, and the judge ruled that you had not properly handled his finances.
Now, all the dollar amounts, and there have been various dollar amounts, I cannot confirm or deny these dollar amounts because I don't know about these dollar amounts that we've gotten from different places, you know, from the media, from all that.
What was your reaction, both of you? I want to hear from both of you. What was your reaction when you learned
that he was suing us?
That your son was suing you? Sue?
Well,
It said, Lord, I never thought it would come to this, but you got to help us through this. You know, we're not the first and we won't be the last, so just guide us and let us know what we need to do here. As it come to the end, we decided then that we would do whatever we needed to do to relieve the stress on Gary. I mean, it was harder, I think it was harder on him with his physical, medical condition than it was on us going through all this mental strain and people talking at him. It had to be a tremendous strain on him. And we said, we will do whatever we need to do to relieve this. Just get it over with. We talked to our attorney. He talked to Gary's attorney, and they came to an agreement. Now, whether it was this, whatever, 2 million, whatever you 1.2 million or whatever.
$80 million.
I don't know. All I know is that this was settled. He called us up and said, it's over. We said, thank you, Lord.
And what me was, I didn't find out it was 2 weeks. You know why?
Why?
Because I was in the hospital. And my wife, and everybody refused to tell me because I would have had it. They said I would have had a relapse.
What were you in the hospital for?
I had colon surgery.
You had colon surgery?
The same day that this was filed. And for 2 weeks, I come home, and so she brought me the paper and told me that, and then I get a call from our former business manager and said Gary had sued us. Now, I can shed some light on what is supposed to be money, you know, the lawsuit came from. The settlement came from a balloon, you know, insurance that we had on Gary from day one when we first, you know, found out that he was going to be a superstar. we taking out the insurance in fear of if he ever got kidnapped, this $2 million would have covered, for ransom. No money never came out of our pocket or out of our account because we ain't had nothing. And still don't have nothing. We had a few investments because of the residuals that we was paid out of 20% that we invested in. And that's, everybody think that we, are rolling in money, okay? We ain't never set ourselves up to be higher than anyone else or to have more than someone else. My own family used to get on me about, well, all the money that you guys have, all the money that Gary have, won't you use some of it? We can't, Mom. We can't, bruh. Why not? Because Gary is under the Coogan law of Los Angeles, California as a minor. Mm-hmm. You want me to go to jail? Okay? Because it hurt me so bad. I had a kid from the time that he was 4 days old. And then someone abused him when he could not protect himself. And then all these accusations that they've been coming out about us for the last 25 years. It's ludicrous. People are insane. They have no idea what we had to go through, what we've been able to overcome, and still we had not overcome because it's been so much, so much abuse been thrown at us, so many accusations, which I just wonder what the Sam hell would these people have done if they was in our shoes. This child, 4 days old, coming later on, he have a heavy medical problem and losing a kidney. Would they have been there? We never have turned our back on him. From that day, even now, I still think about him.
Let me say this. We did what we had to do, and we don't live in the past. We have to move forward. Gary is gone now, and there's not a day that passed that we don't think about him, and most days we talk about him. And Mr. Perillo has been there, 30-some years he's stayed in contact with us, and through all this he called, hey, how are you guys? You all right? You doing whatever?
You asked where the arc is in Gary's life, and I will tell you it's Dion Meal. And I have no problem saying that because I get so frustrated listening to the media and the press talk about my friends here. When Gary died, I wanted to talk to the Screen Actors Guild, to AFTRA, and to all these people about the people in the industry that bring child actors down, and the peripheral industry. Mr. Meal had an agenda, and his agenda was to discredit all of us so that he could take over. And this is something that the parents of children in show business should be very much aware of. You asked Mr. and Mrs. Coleman about, did Gary have friends? Gary had plenty of friends, but we always had to keep an eye out for people whose agendas were, we want to be friendly with him because he's Gary Coleman. And Gary was very much aware of this. Let me say, Gary would finish Diff'rent Strokes and couldn't wait to get home. He had a full life. He had a full life. I think he got the better schooling on the set than a lot of kids get in the schools in many of the cities here. And he had quite a normal life. And he had a happy life with Mr. and Mrs. Coleman. What brought Gary Coleman down is not these people or the representatives that were around him that brought him to this ladder. What brought him down are the people that you have to watch out for. They're the life coaches. They're the managers who you know, look themselves onto the child stars and
Wanna-be managers.
wanna-be managers. And they have agendas. So it has nothing to do with the industry. The industry couldn't be better to Gary.
And as you say, the laws of the state of California
Very strict.
were put in place to protect.
The child.
Right.
And that Mr. and Mrs. Coleman should be thought about. As every time I mention Gary's name, they say, oh, isn't that the one where the parents, you know, it's really quite frustrating because I can name you a dozen parents that did do this. Don't forget, I work for the union and I know this as a fact. They didn't do anything. And as far as the dollar amounts, I hear these dollar amounts that Gary made on different strokes. Like, oh, he made 100,000. He never made $18 million. I know because I negotiated his contract. Don't you think I know? You know, I know what he made. And he made a significant amount of money for what he did, for what he did for the networks and what he did for the movies. He did, and he never had any. Gary, if the Colemans will tell you, you know, he never wanted to know what he made. Money was not an issue to him.